Well, that is the transfer window slammed shut, and Derby County's deadline day business has been nothing short of piss poor. Only player we've brought in is Harrison Armstrong from Everton under 18s. Well, he's played for their first team a few times, and he may well go on to be a really good signing for Derby County, but ultimately it's not what we needed. It's not what we were told to think about, and it is just very, very disappointing to see the way that this has gone for Derby County, because you look at what other clubs have done around us, and I know what's going to be said. I know what's going to happen. Paul Warne's going to come out and go, we did everything we could to bring in this. We did everything we could to bring in that. But ultimately, in my opinion, I really do just disagree with all of it. I think if you want something, you can make it happen, and that's something which Paul Warne and co haven't done across the course of any transfer window, really. You even go back as early as their first ever transfer window, where we went through the exact same situation. Now, I am just sitting on Twitter on screen right now, just in case something pops up as I'm recording this video. It's not long gone, 11 o'clock, 3 minutes past as we are recording, and it's one of those for me where I'm going to go into each signing in a little bit more detail tomorrow evening in a video. But it's one for me where I'm very, very disappointed with the situation. I think we got rid of Erin Cashin on the basis that the money would be reinvested. And don't get me wrong, yes, we reinvested £4 million into Sondre Langas, which is unbelievable money for what Derby County have been spending over the course of the last few seasons. But it's obviously... Derby County have got to spend money. You're not going to get better without spending money, and that's the situation we find ourselves in, is that David Clowes has put us in a position where we're in a position of weakness now compared to those teams around us. Everyone around us has strengthened, swapped managers, apart from, I believe, Pompey, but Pompey have strengthened their squad this January window. In my opinion, we've not strengthened, and that is my instant reaction to the January window right now. We've let go of James Collins, we've let go of Sonny Bradley, we've let go of Tawanda Chiwo, let him go back to Wolves. Obviously, Erin Cashin's gone. We've lost Curtis Nelson for the season. We've lost Dejon Brown for the rest of the season. Corey Blackett-Taylor's out injured. Not entirely sure when Wilson's back. Elder's picked up a knock. So realistically, I think we come out of this window weaker than what we came into it. Don't get me wrong. I believe that Langas, is he an improvement on Cashin? I don't know. We've not seen him play. Is Armstrong, is he an improvement on Tawanda Chiwa? Again, don't know, haven't seen him play. I think Matt Clark offers us more right now than Erin Cashin did. Although I think Erin Cashin's going to obviously go on to be the better player, which is obviously one which I think will be a debate among many fans. And obviously then Selverson to replace James Collins. I do believe Selverson's a better striker than James Collins. I think he's going to be more effective than James Collins would have been over the course of the rest of the season. But ultimately, what matters is the rest of the pitch. We've needed wingers and midfielders and a left back since the first window closed this season, and we just haven't brought one in. And it is a little bit of a joke, in my opinion. Like, how many times can Derby County do this? And who is at fault for it? In my opinion, I believe it is down to David Clowes, Stephen Pearce, Paul Warne, because there is no way in hell that the recruitment team just haven't put names in front of them. And at the end of the day, the people that have got to get those deals done is Stephen Pearce. It's Paul Warne's got to say yes. David Clowes has got to give the money. And they're the three people with the final say, essentially. Paul Warne could say yes, but Pearce could not be able to negotiate a deal that David Clowes can say yes to. So it's between those three. And for me, we're just in an awful position. 8 losses on the bounce, and all we've done is bring in 2 players. And I am disappointed, and a few people have commented today. I'll get to all your comments tomorrow. But it's one of those for me where a lot of people have noticed the sort of negative outlook which I've got within this situation, and it really is I don't know how else to sort of discuss it. I don't know how else to sort of put it forward. I do think it's very, very disappointing. Now, obviously, I am sitting here recording this video sort of hoping that something comes out, because we've had nothing from Dom Dietrich, we've had nothing from Lee Curtis, nothing from Derby County to sort of say that business is done. And something could happen over the course of the next few minutes. And I'm just going to continue chatting shit until potentially something does. I've got a time frame where I'll sort of go, you know what, game's done, and we'll just get to it in the morning if something happens. But it's one of those for me where it's an unbelievable situation we find ourselves in. If I am just going to get on screen the transfers we've made in this January window so that I can talk sort of through my thoughts. Obviously, coming in, you've got Selverson, Clark, Langas, Armstrong. Langas, Clark and Selverson, I do think are improvements on the squad. But then you've got to look at the outgoings. Sonny Bradley, James Collins, Erin Cashin. Now, Bradley and Collins, not arsed in the slightest, not bothered. Cashin, very bothered. Very good player. Really happy with him at Derby County, obviously, as most people would have been. But then you've got to look at the injury list we find ourselves in, which is, who have we got out? Curtis Nelson, Joe Ward, Callum Elder, Kane Wilson, Nat Phillips. Paul Warne doesn't like Jake Rooney, so we're struggling at the back. You go through the midfield, Ben Osborne can't play 2 games in a week. Marcus Harness hasn't been performing. Ebo Adams is anything but a technical player. Very good on the defensive end, on the other end of the pitch. Awful. Kenzo can't get into a game because he's got to go out to right back. I looked at his heat map the other day. It is ridiculous. Liam Thompson can't seem to stay fit. David Ozo has played 2 games since September. Freddie Turley can't get on the pitch. We go to the forward line. Mendes Lang, where's his form gone? Barkhazen, Warne don't fancy him. Washington, always injured. Caden Jackson, what the fuck's up with him? Jerry Yates, I think he's a good player. Doesn't fit Paul Warne. Lars Jorgen Selverson, I think he will be a good player towards the end of the season. I just think it's a really difficult situation for him to find himself in at Derby County. Then obviously going to Corey Blackett-Taylor, who's out for a while, and then Dejan Brown, who's out until the end of the season. And for me, I think the big talking point has to be Paul Warne, in complete and utter honesty. That has to be the talking point coming out of this transfer window. Derby County are 8 losses in a row. Haven't won since December 26th. I think we've only scored twice since that day as well, maybe 3 times, which is obviously awful. It is very, very disappointing. And the big thing has to be is, why haven't we gone out and improved this squad? Why haven't we gone out and picked up? Now, the Langas deal is one which baffles me, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail on everything tomorrow. It'll probably be like a half an hour video because I've got so much to say about this situation, and we'll go in depth in each deal. We'll talk about James Collins, we'll talk about Tawanda Chiwa, we'll talk about Cashin. But I just want to say about Langas, we've spent £4 million on one centre half. Now, we bought Selverson for 800k. Kenzo held mine for 600. Ebo Adams was 500, rising to £1 million. Zetterstrom was £1.5 million. I think it can rise to 2. Why have we gone out and spent £4 million on one centre half? We needed 5 or 6 players, and we've spent £4 million on a centre half. You spend that £4 million on a striker, you go and pick up a fucking anybody. Like, I don't know. We don't score goals, we concede them. So yeah, bring in a centre half, make it a little bit easier for us to defend. But ultimately, what we've done today, I don't necessarily agree with. I think we needed a lot more today, and obviously the links to Carlon Grant. There was a couple of other links across the course of the day as well. With a striker, I believe it was from Aberdeen. I could be wrong, it might have been Hibernian, but one of them. You've obviously got links into Dyke Steele from Middlesbrough as well, and it doesn't surprise me what's happened today. It doesn't surprise me what's happened across the course of this transfer window. It really doesn't, because Derby County have always done business like this, and I don't really know who we're supposed to blame, really, because it's one of those for me where we've just completely and utterly fucked it. And the only chance we really have now of staying up is getting rid of Paul Warne. We've got money left from the Cashin deal, so I don't want to hear that excuse by anybody again in the comments, on Facebook, on Twitter. We've got money from Cashin. We've got £4 million left. We've got £4 or £5 million left from Erin Cashin. Nobody can tell me we can't afford to get rid of Paul Warne anymore. And I'm going to continue to speak on Paul Warne. We're going to obviously have match previews and all sorts coming out over the course of the next few days. There's going to be a video tomorrow talking about the transfers we've made. There's going to be a squad review out on probably Friday. And obviously we're going to keep across all the latest news if anything does happen with Derby County. But for me, I'm just baffled. I think it is a fucking joke what we've found ourselves in. And I think if we don't let Erin Cashing, if we don't let Thingy go, if we don't let Paul Warne go, we've absolutely lost it. Now, I said I was waiting for a tweet Lee Curtis has just put out 3 seconds ago. Off to bed, deadline passed, not expecting anything now. Harrison Armstrong in and does look to be a fair talent, but I do worry where goals are going to come from. Derby County are a fucking joke. David Clowes, what is going on? Stephen Pearce, what are you doing? And Paul Warne, leave your keys at the door.